We got to put forth the effort. We have to make it work. We have to find outlets for who we are. So we're not off the hook just because we're created to be perfectly capable.
Show of hands, how many of you in the room have done Kolbe? Have your own Kolbe? Okay, great. How many of you it has changed the way that you actually run your life and run your company? Okay, awesome. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce my dear friends, Kathy Kolbe and David Kolbe. Come on up. Now, I know Kathy a hell of a lot more than I know David, but still.
You can hug.
Yeah, yeah. No, we go back, but it's been a long time. So, first off, super happy that you guys were able to just come by here because I know you're right in the middle of stuff and that you don't have a lot of time. But I'd rather leave a little bit of this, having you describe what Kolbe is, why someone should utilize it, those that have already are using it, which is probably half the Genius Network members use Kolbe. First off, defining what it is, what it does, and then I'd like to do some Q&A with the audience.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What it is something that figured out who he was when he still had a pigtail.
A pigtail, yeah.
Yeah, the pigtail.
Ponytail.
Ponytail. I was like, but occasionally I would do, Halloween and whatnot,
It was a ponytail.
Friday nights, things like that. Yeah.
Really, the question I was always trying to answer from the time I was a wee little kid was, because my dad was the Wunderlich personnel, my maiden name is Wunderlich, and it was all about cognitive, how smart are you? And I would give that to people I was going to date in college. And it really never told me what I needed to know. He's really smart, but what a boring dude. It never told me anything about what makes people tick, who they are, what will they and won't they do. And I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what it is that is great about you, what it is that is your strength. Because with bell-shaped curves like cognitive, it says that some people aren't as good as others. I never bought that. To me, every human being has something to offer, and I wanted to know what that is. And then I had kids. And I saw that, these kids didn't come into the world doing what I told them to do, and they never learned to do what I told them to do. They are who they are, and I better get used to that and figure out how to celebrate them instead of some gold standard somebody set up for what kids were supposed to do. David never shut up. The ADHD wasn't used then. Mm-hmm. He would have been that. Well, now I know, he used to say, but that's not fair. And I remember saying, who says it has to be fair? And he said, it has to be fair. And I said, go be a lawyer. He did.
Forgive me. But.
He is both a lawyer and a Wharton graduate. So he has this combination of he knows how to make money and he knows how to stay out of trouble. And both of those help me a lot because I'm not good at either of those. For me, it's all about how can we change the world so the world recognizes each one of you is perfect. You're absolutely perfect. You were created to be perfectly capable of creating. And until we start recognizing our strengths, we are belittling humankind. We don't need to fix people, we need to enable them. We need to allow you to be you, and we need to help you allow your kids to be as different as each one is. He's got 9 siblings who are all fact finders. I cannot imagine living in that since I'm a 2.
Little quick start, 9 fact finders, and then in an industry where
we'll get your mic if you're gonna. Yeah.
And being in an industry where most people surrounding me are fact finders and follow throughs. It was just hell until I took this profile.
And there must have been a time at which you thought there was something wrong with you.
All the time. I was being told that all the time.
Yeah.
Why aren't you like the rest of us? How come you don't do this like everybody else?
And what I hope you learned when you took the Kolbe is how perfectly wonderful you are.
Absolutely.
And that's what my work is about. It's the truth. I don't make it up. I don't say, oh, you're perfect. None of us is perfect. We're all perfectly capable of, if we work at using our talents. We got to put forth the effort. We have to make it work. We have to find outlets for who we are. So we're not off the hook just because we're created to be perfectly capable. We have to do the work. So I don't say to my kids when they were little, oh, that's okay, mommy will do it for you. I don't think I ever did anything for my kids. They did it all for me because they were teaching me all the while that you have to be who you are. And even though mom thought she was pretty smart, I wasn't smart enough to know how to help them be who they were. They taught me that by being who they were. David's sister is a psychotherapist, and I swear she's a psychotherapist to be in my face with everything I do wrong. She also, for a while, was a food critic, meaning she criticized the way people fix food. I said, okay, I know where she got that. She was always a critic of mom's cooking. And so what I have always said is, I learned when she was little, she taught me, I am not good at cooking food. So what? I don't have to be. Go be who you are, do what you do. You don't have to be good at everything. And just because your mom does not mean you have to cook food your kids like. I was so glad to figure that out. Well, I don't know if I figured it out or used it as an excuse. Colby gives you an excuse for being you. When I first went to the ETS people, you know the Myers-Briggs? The Myers-Briggs people and the ETS people who do the SAT, both of them have tried to buy Colby Corp. There is no way in hell I'm going to sell Colby Corp to people who do what they do. David's in charge of doing what his mother started. He's the CEO of Colby Corp. He had to get rid of his mother, though. He could not have mother hanging around and give him the freedom to be himself. So I have my own skunk works in Scottsdale called Dynamite. And he doesn't even know what I'm doing half the time. And that's okay. That's okay, because mom's doing the quick start thing I was intended to do, the big picture projects. I don't care if I don't make money. I would care a lot if I wasn't making a problem for people. And the biggest problems I'm trying to create right now are in the wellness field and the education. I'm trying to turn them upside down, shake them and say, this isn't right. The way you're doing it doesn't work for everybody. Don't tell me I have to follow your stupid diet. It's stupid, except for those people who wrote it and it works for them. I am not going to do it your way. Most recently, my new primary doctor, because the old one kept telling me I had to do it his way, my new primary doctor saw me walk in the door and she said, it's time for you to retire. I said, why? And she said, Kathy, how many years have you been working? It's time for you to enjoy life. I said, you don't get me. My joy in life is being a troublemaker, doing what I do. If I stay home, what would I do? And she said, oh, you could journal. Here's my answer to her. You will be a part of what I talk about in my podcasts. What I want you to know is that I get you. And I get Joe. And I get that the contribution that people like you make in the world is essential to the world thriving. And I want to just say to you, because I'm a preachy person.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
Do not ever, ever compromise who you are. Not for any deal, not for anybody getting along with you and being all happy about being with you. Upset them a little bit, or a lot. I want to tell you, it doesn't matter if you make money. The money will come if it's supposed to. What you have to do is make a difference. What you have to do is be free to be you. If you're free to be you, all the other things will fall in place. If you don't have that freedom, nothing else matters. If you forget that, what would happen? If you forgot to be yourself, what would happen? Other people forget you too. You'll be nobody. You'll have nothing. Because you'll be just like everybody else that's out there trying to hide behind somebody or something. For you to be who you are, oh my God, for you to be who you are,
I'm a driver.
you have to be,
start.
you are a quick start. You have to be who you are, and if you're not that, you really disappear.
Yes.
Because the drive is gone, the thrive is gone, the purposefulness is gone. So I think it's important that we all celebrate not only our own strengths, but in the process of celebrating our own strengths, we celebrate the ability to enable other people to thrive by being who they are. A lot of you are bosses. The best boss in the world is the boss who says, do it your way. Get it done. Here's the goal, but do it your way. And we don't have enough of that in this world. So when I'm with Joe, if there's anybody who does it his way, it's Joe. So I always just feel so good when I'm around Joe and when I'm around with all of you and the people who are drawn to his program, because I think you get it. So David, how hard is it for you to live with a mother who says that?
I don't remember anymore because I got over it a while ago. And that's why and I was about to say why I kicked her out of the business, but it was a mutual.
It was mutual.
It's
He didn't kick
literally
me.
true. She got another office. She moved away. She does not have an office at our office. She's technically not a shareholder anymore. It's separate, and yet we still work together. So yeah, it's a little unusual, but it works.
But what is that like for you?
No, honestly, it just is. Like it's hard to even describe. It just is. But we have the foundation of A, knowing ourselves and each other, and B, operating in the environment where that's what we're supposed to do. There's not an expectation to do it a different way. So.
And one of the things I think is interesting is because most of you know your Kolbe result, and you know it's on a scale of 1 to 10 in 4 modes of action. On the first one, the fact finder, it deals with how thorough are you? How precise are you? How much do you get into the detail and the strategy? Or are you a generalist who bottom lines it? So a 10 in fact finder might be a lawyer, would do something research oriented, would be very, very compelled to be sure that everything is accurate and specific and that you never say anything that would just be a global statement. If you're a 1, 2, or 3, you resist that amount of detail and you're always looking for, well, they're the 3 most important things, and then you can't remember the order. It's just the 3 things.
Oh, let me ask you to do this for people that don't understand what Kolbe is, and they're hearing all of this. I'm trying to put myself, because I mean, I took my Kolbe 20 years ago, so I've been involved in this for a long time. Eunice is certified in Kolbe. We have every one of our employees, everyone we're potentially going to hire, we have to do a Kolbe. For someone that knows nothing about what Kolbe is, give the description of what is it, how do they get it, and then describe the 4 areas, because I think that'd be really helpful.
I'll do the specific stuff. Yeah. So what it is, so Kathy gave you the global setup. The only thing I'll add to that is think 3 parts of the mind. Kathy mentioned the cognitive, the intelligence part. So my grandfather's test, the Wonderlic, that's a test of general intelligence. Then there's the affective part, Myers-Briggs. It's your motivation, your preferences, your desires. We measure this other part, this 3rd part. It's called the conative. It's how we take action. It's the way we do things, and that's what Kathy started describing with the fact finder. So how we do that, really simple. There's a 36-question instrument that we call the Kolbe A index. You take it, you get results, and it unlocks a lot of stuff. I mean, it seems, for those of you who haven't done it, ask somebody who has, but we hear all the time from people that experience of, I read this, and I think you've talked about that some. Dan Sullivan's talked about it, and it's kind of on my mind. We were talking to him the other day. You read it, you go, wow, I don't have to do all that other bullshit. I can just, this is what I get to do. That's awesome. And so that it starts really at that simple level of just taking it, getting those results. But then the process is, okay, that's great, but now how do I actually do it? Especially for the people who haven't been given that freedom. How do you work for it? You shouldn't have to, but a lot of people do have to learn and sometimes unlearn some of those other things. And then there are all kinds of applications. So if you're using it in your business, it's understanding, great, there are a team of us around the table. Now that I know this about myself, but I also know it about the 5 other people, how does that change the dynamics? If we have a group that's all the fact finders like me, who are asking more questions and delving into detail and driving 3 or 4 more decimal places of precision, how do we stop that? We are who we are, but there are techniques to say, you know what, we're going to put a time limit on this. We're going to limit the number of questions. There are lots of ways you can do it. So team formation, understanding how to work, hiring the right person, doing job analysis. So there are all kinds of those corporate applications. My current favorite has nothing to do with business stuff. It's what I previewed, showed you a little snapshot of. It's looking at personal relationships. So we were working with an advisory board, and Kathy actually said, okay, hey, let's, the icebreaker is, how about everybody just say, what's been the most meaningful part of understanding your strengths, your Kolbe results? Every single person in that room was a business client of ours. Every single person gave a personal example. And we kind of realized, what are we missing? We're focusing on the business stuff because, well, she had done that before I came along. It's easier to make money on that business stuff. But our mission is to help people understand what's great about them, these strengths that we have, and apply it to the things they care about. Well, we're hearing what they care about are these personal applications. So if you want to go to takes2.com, that's our relationship stuff that we've kind of kicked off, which I love.
Yeah. So that being said, I'd like to see if anyone in the room has questions for Kathy or David related to Kolbe, and let's get them a mic. Just turn around so we can fire one of those at you.
Is that a tattoo on your hand?
Is that a tattoo on your hand? That's a Kolbe.
That's your Kolbe.
That's my Kolbe. Yesterday was David's sister, my daughter's 25th anniversary at Kolbe. She is the president, and as a part of the birthday celebration, they tattooed all of us with our MOs.
It's temporary.
I thought it was long term.
Yeah. But no, I don't keep it all the time.
No, just like Harley Davidson, if you work at Kolbe, you have to get a tattoo.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, new product.
It's a lot harder to leave,
Last time we were talking about that, weren't we? Well, that was last time, September. We were talking about people with tattoos of the brand and things.
Yeah, you have to really, it's, when people start putting the name of your company on their bodies,
I want all of you get a tattoo with your MO. I even know someone who's going the business who I've want to introduce you to. He calls them scars, though. Oh.
So, okay, Kurt.
So I did the Kolbe 20 years ago when I started as strategic coach. I'm a 5'3", 9'3". Of course, you remember it every time.
I'm a 5'2", 9'3", so we're very similar.
There's a lot of that going around in this room.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And so I was wondering if that can change over time, if there's any drift.
I'm so glad you asked that question because I've just spent the last 6 months researching that. I wish I had known you. I would have put you in our research base because we're testing people who took it 20 or more years ago. And what we found, we have people who've taken it 20 up to 28 years ago. And how much difference do you suppose we find over that period of time? It statistically is considered no difference. It's so small.
Yeah, I took mine with a 20-year difference, and it's exactly the same.
Yeah, because it is who you are.
You got it, Mike, back there?
Yeah, I was going to say I took it in 1996, and I was a 7445, and I took it last year, and I was a 7446.
Oh, you grew that implementer. Actually, we have a variance of 1 in any mode that is a natural variance, so we consider they're not statistically significant. Yeah, if you are who you are, this is the one part of you that's consistent, and I did some research. I only love research, as we were talking about, because it proves me right. Yeah, you have to think about that a minute. A lot of people say, but you're a 2 in fact finder. Why do you love research? Well, it proves me right. Of course I love it. What we've found is that there is no, I shouldn't say we, research done by other people has found there's no other assessment of humankind where people stay the same for even a month. Not cognitively, as David said, because we forget things very quickly, we learn things. Not affectively, because even a day later, oh, but I have different priorities now that I think about this or do that. Not even physically. The only part of the human being that is constant, that you can count on and therefore deal with as a predictable behavior, is conation. For that reason, I'm really glad that about 22 years ago, he's going to correct my number, the U.S. not the Supreme Court, the Ninth Circuit, Federal Court, declared that all of my work is protectable and nobody else can use any of the language of my work. So the 4 modes that are discussed with you, nobody else can use those. Yes! As an entrepreneur.
So can you define conation to a point so that everyone here gets and understands what that means?
Yeah, conation is what you will and won't do, how you will act, react, and interact. It's an innate drive. I used to say it tied to human instincts, but that's been trashed by the media and the political people, so I'm not saying that anymore.
I remember you once, like years ago, you had done some research in the school system, and you found that the vast majority of teachers at the time, I don't know if this has changed much, you made some comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be saying this wrong, that 2/3 of the school system that when you had done Kolbe's on were high research, low quick start, and that you believe that the vast majority of kids that were being diagnosed as troublemakers, ADD, were being given Ritalin so that they could numb quick start kids because they operate in a school system which doesn't understand them, which is the vast majority of entrepreneurs.
You summarized it quite well for a person with your MO. I'm really impressed. It's actually 2/3. 2/3 of teachers in our junior high and high school are insistent fact finders. In grade school, they are more follow through than fact finder, but the second suit is fact finder. We have found that in the general population, it's a bell-shaped curve in each of the modes. So naturally, 25% of the population initiates in each of 4 action modes. It's fact finder, how you gather information; follow through, how you store and sort information; quick start, how you deal with unknowns and uncertainty; and implementer, how you deal with the physical space and tangible world you live in. So we are who we are. So education immediately tries to teach us there's one way to study and learn. If that doesn't fit who you are and you're not the 25% of the grade school kids who are follow through, your report card will say that you don't pay attention, oh, David did not sit still in class. Mm-hmm. And I kept saying, what does that have to do with being a good student? Well, you can't be a good student if you don't sit still. Really? I didn't know that.
How am I doing today? Am I all right?
David, are you on Ritalin?
No.
No, he's not. It'd be over my dead body that you would, I consider it child abuse to give kids drugs to not be who they are.
Do you have a child test?
Do I have what?
Is there a test for kids?
Yes. I have a youth index for kids, and then because I deal with so many infants and so many people with Alzheimer's or people who cannot read or write for some reason, I have a nonverbal assessment, which is part of my joy is when I figured out how to do that. And I'm trying to develop the war chest to come up with an online assessment. I call it the Gizzies. So when the Gizzies get ready, there'll be no end. We'll be able to reach people in any language in any place.
Well, and you think about all the, and we'll go to Joel. Joel has a question. With all of the depression and all of the suicides and all of the addiction and all the fact that 20% of women are on antidepressants and 10% of people are on some pharmaceutical based on behavioral things in the United States, I think so much of that has to do with people's inability to
be who they are.
You and I have spent some long lunches talking about those things. I believe that we could reduce suicide rates dramatically if all kids knew how wonderful they really were, and if their friends knew how wonderful they were, and if we celebrated the diversity of cognitive differences. Every kid, every human being has a strength, a set of strengths. We're not celebrating those, we aren't encouraging or nurturing them in most schools. When we start doing that, I think we'll reduce a lot of problems. I've done studies on the correlation between substance abuse, alcoholism, and drugs, and cognitive stress. Cognitive stress being the mismatch, because there's not just the Kolbe A, there's a Kolbe B saying, and this is how I think I have to do my job. When those are out of alignment, we know people are living in stress. And then we have the C, where managers are able to say, this is the way you have to do this job. I shouldn't say it that way, because sometimes they say, and this is the way you get to do your job. Whatever voice you say it in, it's management having a requirement that you may or may not fit as the job holder. And we need not to try to change you by putting you in a training program to rehab the way you work. We need management to find ways to allow you to reach your goal through your own method. It's a different form of management than most people are taught. It is certainly not taught at Harvard. Although I have great respect for some people who used to be there. They told me the head of the Harvard Business School, the MBA program, was a big buddy of mine. And when I showed him my work, he said, turn around and run. Run as fast as you can in the other direction. Because if you're right, and he thought I was, every single professor here and everybody in the psych department will have to rewrite their textbooks. Yeah. Yep. They do not want you to be right. They will never allow you to be right. Run. Which I thought was interesting and honest. It's okay that people disagree with me. It's not okay that we're harming employees, CEOs, spouses, families. I mean, think of the stress in your life and ask yourself the question, how much of this could have gone away if I'd had the freedom to do it my own way? How much of it was cognitive? And nobody sets out to be mean to you and not let you be yourself. They just don't know how to do it. So David's challenge is to turn this around, because in my lifetime it's not going to happen. I've met so much. I'm the queen, well, I say of several different things, but mainly so many people have just told me, you know, you're wrong. That's not true. It can't possibly be true. We would have all have known it. Harvard would know it. Mayo would know it. There's so many people who have rejected, that the phrase I mostly use is the queen of rejection. That's okay. Because I'm in a room right now with people who aren't rejecting it. And more, I'm finding people are saying, it hasn't been working, there has to be another answer. And I believe that answer, in part, not in totality, but in part the answer is understanding how we were created, and that we were created to be creative, so let's celebrate that. What do you think?
I like it.
Oh, good.
Let's go to Joel, then to Gary. And
When in the 70s did you start this, create it?
I'll do the detail because she won't get it right.
Oh,
trust
good.
me.
Oh, thank you.
The company was founded in November of 1975.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's when I knew about this, because my secretary worked for you to do the typing on the original things that you were developing. So that's when I first heard about Colby. And then through Genius Network, and have heard all about it these years, and the raving reviews. How accurate do people feel the assessment is when they get the results?
The research that we've done shows that about 82% of the people say, yeah, this is me. And I think there's a percentage of people who don't want to be known. It's a little spooky to have someone know who you are, and some people would prefer not to have it be right, and I get that.
Well, we were working with a group of lawyers, and they were all supposed to take it, and one of the lawyers said, oh, I'm not going to do it. And the question was why? And he said, I've read Sun Tzu, know your enemy. Why would I want people to know me? I'm like, wow, you think everybody's your enemy? You know? I'm glad I'm not living in your world, but there are some people who are like that. They're just...
So 82% feel
Let's do something for this room. How many of you have done your Kolbe? How many of you, keeping your hand raised, think it's completely accurate? Not a single person
Well,
there.
go the other way. Anybody think it was inaccurate?
Somebody
I
wasn't.
think it was perfect, but I think it was pretty good.
Well, I must be in that other 18%.
Have you done it?
I've done it twice, and I read it, and it didn't make any sense to me. And I gave it to 5 other people that know me very well, and none of them thought it was me.
I'll
And
make you a deal. Come and do the cubes.
the cubes?
The cubes are the nonverbal, because sometimes the.
So you know I'm illiterate. You figured me out.
I got
can do
your numbers.
cubes.
Yeah, I think it would be fun for you to do the cubes. I will say this: I find that there is about 4 to 5% of people who don't answer in a way that predicts who they really are. And when they say that, I totally believe you that it's not showing who you are, but you need to know who you are, so let's do the cubes. The cubes never lie.
Well, one other thing.
I didn't say you lied.
I've been involved with a lot of these assessments, and I use one myself in my leadership training. But one of the things I found, and I think we'll all agree, how many know somebody who has no clue how they come over?
Yeah.
That they think they're warm and wonderful, and people think they're a jerk. And how many know one person, at least like that, that has no clue who they are? So since we all know Jim do, and that's what always was a question in the back of my mind, since it's a self-assessment, that we answer the questions based on our self-perception, and yet we all know people whose self-perception is not reality.
That's true of affective instruments. The conative is different because it's not your self-perception, it's how you take action, not there's no good or bad to it. So it's a little different.
And there are times when people can't clue into that. So it's similar to what you're talking about. So some of you, when you took the Kolbe Index the first time, you might have gotten what we call a transition result. And that's somebody who's really striving to do things in a different way. And because of that, typically they kind of lose the sense of, well, how do I answer this if free to be myself? Because they don't feel free to be themselves. So they answer it not really knowing. So it is that disconnection. Usually what we see is that's a temporary thing. So they take it, they get that answer, that result, and the result basically says this is not permanent. So it sounds like different than your result that you got. But that happens about 10% of the time when somebody gets that transition result.
One other question which I thought was fascinating on Joe. I mean, we all know Joe's openness, and this was 20 years ago. You took it again. It came out exactly the same thing. And I don't think anybody here knew Joe except for Eunice 20 years ago. But as you've described, and Kathy, but I think as you've described yourself over these years at Genius Network, you have made massive self-improvement, personality, I mean, all kinds of growth has occurred, and yet this area does not change?
That's correct. We change our beliefs. We can get smarter, or as we age, some of us get dumber. Things happen in life that change the cognitive and affect. It doesn't change the conative. It's part of the beauty in working with people with Alzheimer's, because we can tap into those strengths because they don't go away.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question too, because there's a lot of people with questions, but I know you have an appointment you have to be at, and it's 2:18. So how are we for time? What do you?
I have till 2:30.
2:30. Okay. We'll do a hard. Okay. Who had the Gary and then?
Yep. So
and then Barbara.
Kathy, so went through your training, and 4 years ago, I took my Kolbe 20 years ago. And then you read my Kolbe and gave me a little more insight. And I find as an entrepreneur, being aware first allows me then to be intentional second. And we get that order messed up if we're not sure what we're doing. So one of the things you made me aware of was that I innovate in my follow through. And for those who don't know that, that's okay. But you made me clear about something I started doing as a child and all the way through, kind of to your point, is that I've always done that all the way through. And if you read my profile, it tells you that. The reason I'm bringing it up is since 4 years ago, I've become much, much better as a long quick start innovator because I no longer tried to do that in other areas. I didn't realize that I was always doing it in the same area. And it just was amazing to me that I didn't even understand. I wasn't aware of that. And the reason I bring this up is it makes a lot of sense for those in the room to have somebody come in, if they want to do those readings for their team and for them, because it makes a big difference in your business when you know awareness and then intentionality placed in the right location.
I'm glad you said that, because for a lot of people, knowing your result but not having a personal interpretation from an expert, you don't get as much input. I'm going to recommend that each of you either yourselves go through our 3-day certification training or you get someone in your organization to do it, because it's really important to have that expertise and the training and the theory, and there's so much. I mean, in this little period we can't tell you all the things it does or why, but you need to understand the basics of the theory and how it works and the complexity of it to truly get the totality. We have a result that is the A to A. So it says, I'm sitting between these two guys. If I look at David's and I look at Joe's results together, then I have actually personally written all of the things I would have to deal with the differences between them, or they would have to deal with the differences between each other. And I try to add humor to it. People find this kind of amusing because I say, and don't even try with some things. So it's very good to use the full depth of, and we got dozens and dozens of applications and programs. I'm going to suggest 2 things to you: getting that expertise for yourself or someone in your organization. And we have training programs quarterly. The next one is in 2 weeks in Scottsdale. We do them in Scottsdale, Chicago, and Toronto. The other thing I'm going to suggest is in October, we have a full day experience for you where people who've been using Kolbe for years are going to explain how they use it. They're going to give examples. They're going to give a lot of information during a day. We have speakers and breakout sessions, but we have something very special that a lot of you know. How many of you know Dan and Babs? Okay, well, it's supposed to be a secret, but it got on the internet. I am awarding them the Founders Award, and they will only be the 4th people to ever receive this award from me for people who have helped me develop the theory. They were among the first people on the face of the earth to grab hold of it, so we understand this as a unique ability and that this is a part of that, and we're going to use it and we're going to tell people about it. They did more to get more of a broad audience paying attention to the work than anybody else. And so I'm giving them this secret prize that they know about. And they and Joe are going to be speaking at that. So that's October 25th. They would be honored and we would be honored if you were there to help celebrate that. So you're welcome to sign up for that.
I have a plug for you. I went to the couples conference with a strategic coach.
Yeah.
And in the couples conference, they made everybody take it anyway. Well, I already had. And you know, in the break, they take the highest scoring person of each kind out of the room, put some stuff on the table, and they explain when they come back, this is how each one will behave. I was a skeptic on the whole Kolbe thing until that. All 4 of them came, and they acted their parts like they had been trained to do that. And everybody was laughing, and they had no idea why we were all laughing, because we were told they'll do this. That's when I believed in it.
That scientific experiment is called Glop Shop. I named that when I was doing a program for the University of Chicago MBA program. And it was so much fun, and for so many people, it was that proof. So we now use Glop Shop. That's one of the things we train people to do, to show, because it's so powerful. I love doing Glop Shop. It's so much fun because people can't believe you really know this about people that you never met before. It's fun.
Yeah. Okay, Joel, Barbara.
She was next.
So I took it 15 years ago and found it incredibly freeing.
Incredibly freeing.
Freeing, liberating, freeing, and I was really able to just really focus on what energized me, because I focused a lot on areas that were completely de-energizing, and I was able to build the team based on the Kolbe strengths.
Did you build a team with people who are different from you around you?
Definitely. Build the team different. But here's the thing. So on the personal side, so I'll let you get over this for a moment. I have 7 children and 7 grandchildren, right? And, you know, my son in grade 1, I was making lunches. I'll make this really brief, but I think it's really important because the educational system is broken, especially for boys in elementary school. So he came home with his lunch and he wasn't eating it for weeks. And I said, why aren't you eating your lunch? You know, I'm changing it, I'm doing this and that. And he said, well, you know how boys sometimes speak when they're young? Well, I don't know, right? And he said, oh, I was busy. And I said, well, what were you busy doing? So I probed. And I found that what he was busy doing was he was in the principal's office, staring at the wall during the entire lunch hour.
Oh.
And the reason was that he was too busy in the classroom. Wouldn't sit still.
He was a David Kolbe.
He was. So, but here's the thing. You know, I then called the principal, you know, et cetera. I went in there and they had like 5 experts in there, the social worker, the psychologist, the teacher, the blah, 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 right? Telling me that he had attention deficit disorder and I should really get him to a doctor, which I did. He went on Ritalin for a month because I saw him completely change and I couldn't do it. And I started studying neuroscience of gender differences and how boys learned, and I learned that boys learn differently and they're very kinesthetic and they need to move to be able to create. Anyway, our nonprofit, we work with Pearson Education around really studying the classroom, and we did 5 schools recently in the United States, and we found that, get this, 86% of the boys in elementary school identified with some kind of deficit disorder did not have it. They had a learning difference. So I really think also we need to think about how we bring that intelligence in terms of boys and girls learning differently. And if you're interested in that, Dr. Leonard Sachs has written many books. One is called Why Gender Matters, SAX, very powerful book. So I just, you know, I've been talking to Pearson Education, which is the #1 educational company, about your work, saying this is really what we need to integrate into the classroom. Have you had any conversation with them?
Let's find ways we can support each other in that.
Okay.
Some of you know Ned Hollowell. Ned's going to be doing a seminar with me, a retreat with me in January. We're going to do a 2-day retreat, and we're going to expose the problems with the misdiagnosis of ADHD. And we're going to do something Dan and Babs have been wanting me to do for years and years, and that is to expose the lies in the educational system. It's really the resistant follow-through kids who are getting labeled as ADHD, and it has no correlation with the truth. So if you're interested in that seminar, just you can either contact me directly at Kathy Kolbe at Kolbe.com, or you can
K. Kolbe.
K. Kolbe, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
A detail, thank
See,
you.
that's what I'm here for.
No, that's great, because Ned is the top ADD, ADHD psychiatrist in the world. So he's done, yeah.
So, yeah, we'll be doing that in January, so if you want to come, let me know.
Okay, awesome. And anything that you guys have, let us know. Date, we'll send out we do a follow-up to everyone here. We'll put links to everything you have, or anything you want them to read, whatever, we'll put that in the follow-up. Joel?
Kathy, thank you for your work. It's awesome. I think we've purchased about 150 between the people we've hired and people we've come across, people that we haven't hired. It's been great. I have a question on the transition. On the profile, it'll have the asterisk on one. Does that mean the whole test is, I don't want to use the word invalidated, but does that mean the whole test is the whole thing is in transition, or just that one line?
So it means a little of both. The language, I wouldn't say that it's invalid. What it's saying is, look, the valid result is that you really can't communicate, you can't express in answering these questions what your permanent result is, but validly speaking, right now you're in transition and you don't know.
But just in that one line?
In that one line, it's saying that's where we see the internal contradiction in the way you answered the questions.
Okay.
But it does mean that the entire result might change.
Got it.
It's not that the 3 are going to stay the same and the 1 is going to be different. It's not very unusual, but it's possible that you'll get the same result without the asterisk and it will not be in transition. So they can all change.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's do one more because Kathy does have to go.
I took my Kolbe 6 years ago, maybe, and along with the Strengths Finder, provided a lot of really great depth and a lot of understanding of myself. Just one thing my wife and I did, we had 2 friends who were getting married, and we gave this as a wedding gift. And
Thank you.
and 6 months after being married, they said that is one of the best gifts we received. So
And now
just
you
Well,
have
that's a new marketing angle. I can just think of all kinds of shit right now.
Now you have the Takes Two program. David wrote the Takes Two program, and it's brilliant. I'm a proud mom. He really did a great job. It was great to do what you did. Now you can even one-up it on their anniversary.
That's great. Thank you.
And the reason I say thank you, it's not for the business. It's because we're mission driven, and that's, I mentioned that before. We want to help people understand their strengths so that they can change the things and be better at the things that they want to be better at doing and make it easier and more fun. And you help people, A, understand that about each other, and B, in the context of getting married. And that's a great blessing that you gave them. And you're helpful.
Eunice, from now on, whenever we need to give wedding gifts, let's just give Colby. That makes it so much easier. You can even knock off what to expect when you're expecting by what
There
to
you
really
go.
expect when you're expecting. Yeah, that's awesome. So, any famous last words from either one of you? It's a super treat that you both came here, and I'm super happy you're able to make it. And any famous last words?
I have to say something before I leave. This is one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. I have seen him grow and develop and impact so many lives. And when I think of when we first met and we brainstormed about what we hoped we could do with our lives, other than my own children and grandchildren, you're right at the top of my list of pride. I'm so, so proud of you.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. They're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.